Hi, I'm Mayor Bain Brooks. This is Let's Dish, the video series where I interview different people in the Allen community that are bringing positivity to our city. Today, we're going to be interviewing Big Ray from Big Ray's Barbecue. Ray,
Yes.
man, where you from?
I'm from Oklahoma, out in the country. Inola, Oklahoma is where I'm actually from. That's where I born and raised.
Okay. Inola, Oklahoma. So now, kind of start off with your journey. I mean, tell me a little bit about how you got to Texas and what do you do here? What'd you do?
Okay, well, I grew up in Oklahoma. At an early age, and when I got out of high school, I moved to Ponca City, took a job with Conoco Oil Company. And I worked there in the lab for about 2 years. And then I left there and went to college, took an educational leave, went to college, and then after I finished there, I went back to work for them. And then I ended up going into the environmental business as an environmental chemist, and I went to United States Pollution Control in Tulsa, moved there. And then when it shut down in around 97, a company here in Allen, ERMI. ERMI. They hired me here and brought me to Texas, and that's how I got to Texas. And so by getting to Texas and then working there and working long hours and putting my kids in school through the school system here, and then I ended up with a partner and got into the food business as well. So that was a side job that turned into a real job. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at.
Back in the day when I met you through my brother because he was a chemist as well, or with Hewlett Packard or one of those companies. And that's how I met you. And my brother goes, hey, man, you got to come up here and try this dude barbecue. So, you know, you're doing the old school spare ribs like we did back in the day. And tell me a little bit about that menu.
But I want to back up and tell you, yeah, that is true. I met Herb first, your brother first, and then he told me about you. And then it took me a while to learn who you were, but with the restaurant over there. But he came in, he was working for HP, and he would work on all our instrumentation. So he would come in and repair the instrument that we run samples on. And so that's kind of how we done. But back to your question.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that menu, because, you know, you bringing a different flavor of barbecue to Texas. You know, not everyone does the kind of barbecue that you're doing. Tell me a little bit about your...
Well, back in Tulsa, we grew up with barbecue. We had one that was called Pete's Barbecue in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then there was another one in Muskogee called Slick's Barbecue. And so we kind of grew up liking a certain taste. And so I would always get bologna and chopped beef. So when I got to Texas, I couldn't find any barbecue bologna. I could get the chopped beef, but I couldn't find the smoked bologna. And then the taste was a little different, and the sauce was a little different for me. So I told my partner when we were doing caterings, I kind of hooked up with him through church, and we started catering, and I introduced some things to the menu, and then he fought me for a while because he's a longtime Texan, you know. And so I said, but let's just merge it and make it a nice blend. And so after I gave him a few samples and got some of the sauce that I use and all of that, he was hooked on it. So, and then when we opened the restaurant together, that's kind of the taste we went with, you know. Basically a dry rub with our own sauce. And then I introduced the bologna, which he told me that'll never happen. And I said, yes, it will. And then that's kind of the way we ended up.
So when you look back on how you started with a partner, and now everybody in this community knows you as Big Ray.
Right.
And if you're going to kind of narrow down, what is Big Ray? I mean.
Well, my thing is if you ever seen our advertisement on the website, it's our motto is basically it's all good. But I always say that if we can't do you no good, we won't do you no harm. So the food is always good, and I tell people if the food is good, tell others. If it's not, tell me. And so that's kind of the way we do it, because I wouldn't want to give somebody something else that I wouldn't eat. So we trained our people when we started out because we were kind of low budget getting started. And so I told them that if we put out a good product and we have good customer service, then we don't have to worry about all the advertisement. I said the people will advertise for us, and that's kind of the way we started it out and did it. So, and it's been successful.
Yeah. Well, we've all known about your success. One of the questions I wanted to ask you is, you know, you're really involved in the community. I see you at a lot of charitable events, doing things with the city of Allen, doing things at different charitable organizations. You know, I do know that when people are in need, one of the first place they come is the restaurant industry. So, being in Allen, what does that mean to you to be such a big part of the community?
Well, you know, Allen is one of those that gives me a small town feel. You know, and me growing up in the country, showing animals at the fairs and things like that. So I think that we were pretty versatile, you know, growing up, because I did show stock, cattle, chickens, sheep, hogs. I did all of that, and then plus my dad was a pastor and a preacher, so you know we got that end of it, the moral end of it. So we were taught how to treat people and this and that. But when I got to Allen, because the little story is, when I was I was a manager in Tulsa, and when they were shutting that business down for me to move to here, I was approached and asked, do I want to move to Dallas? And I said no. And so they said, it's really not in Dallas, it's north of Dallas, about 30 miles or so. I said, well, I might entertain that. So that's kind of how I got here. But when I got here, I had the small town feel in '97. Of course, it's grown quite a bit since then, but it had that feel, and so I kind of liked it here. So got to kind of grow with some of the city and learn some of the things, and I was involved with a lot of activities. Even your brother played with me on basketball teams and men's leagues and stuff like that. Of course, I can't do much of that now, but you know, but we did a lot of that. And then when we have FFA events and things like that, we're a supporter of those from the high school. We've helped out on some of the city league sports and some of the middle school sports. We've kind of helped out on. So we kind of enjoy helping people and making people smile and being able to give. And so we started the program at the restaurant of, you know, just putting up to help those that may be in need, that may be indigent or whatever, that wants to eat. And so we got a program going down there now that you may come in and buy a plate, and you may want to buy a plate and put on the board, and we have no questions asked. We put paid meals up on the board, and people come in and get them and come through the line, and I tell my people no questions asked. Just put it out there. So it's a community thing. It's not just a Big Ray thing. It's a community thing.
Yeah, we've seen you be a part of the community and do some community things. So, how long have you been at this location?
I've been here for since 2011.
Okay.
I think that's about 14 years going on. 15.
You know, that's a long time for the restaurant industry.
Yes.
It's a very long time.
And I feel blessed that we were able to do that because during COVID, when so many of them were shut down and was going away, we continued to just keep moving along. You know, it was just like a dripping oil well. It just continued to run, you know, and so I contribute that to some divine intervention as well. But we were a little creative by adding some delivery services and things like that to keep it going. And it didn't hurt to have my wife come up with the idea of having an in-house store during that time, because nobody could sit down. So when they come in and get the plate, they could buy some toilet paper, they could buy rolls of paper and different things. So when they were having shortages and all of that, and we were still able to get them.
So you briefly mentioned your wife. What role does she play in Big Ray's barbecue?
Oh man, there wouldn't be no Big Ray without Camilla. And I asked her today, did she want to sit in? No. But when we started the restaurant, Big Ray's Barbecue, she had just left corporate industry. She was a project manager for a major company here in town. And so when they had the big layoff, then she was caught up in that. And so when this opportunity came to us, And I'm just at home minding my own business, coming in from work, and I got a phone call and said, do we want another restaurant, because they knew about the one we had in Plano with my partner. And I said, no, I don't want to do that no more. I said, I kind of got burned. And so they made it appealing to me. So I looked at her and I said, well, you want to go back in the corporate world, or you want to go in the restaurant business? So she had already kind of tasted a little bit of that with the other company that me and my partner had. And she said, I think I'll try my hand at that. And so that's what she did. So she built this. And she tried to build it like a corporation, because she got standard operating procedures and closing procedures, opening procedures. All of her recipes, all the sides are homemade, based on things that she's gleaned and put together. So we do the meat, me and my sons, and then she do the sides. And so those are all her recipes. But although we have prep people now that makes them for us.
Which side item is she most proud of?
She's most proud of, I believe, the cornbread salad.
Yeah.
Because that's something I asked her to do for me, and she didn't think at first that it would go over as well, and now she's proud to make that. Yeah.
Well, you see all the sides as you're coming through the line,
Mm-hmm.
and the green beans and the desserts down at the end. And
Yeah.
she's doing all of that.
Yeah, she's cabbage and marinated carrots, coleslaw, cucumbers, all kinds of stuff she bakes.
So let me ask you this. You spoke about COVID a little bit, and I kind of watched you during COVID. You were a little bit extraordinary. I saw people lining up to come in to get food at your place. And it kind of shows what you've put in, what you got back. How did that feel, knowing that you had so many people supporting you at a time where you needed it?
It was such a good feeling, because my wife and I talked about that during that time. And now, since you mentioned it, it kind of brings it back to me. We were so appreciative of Allen. The people here were so great, because when we took over the business, it was a barbecue place before. But somehow things went awry and people went away. But when they learned that there was new management and they started coming in and they liked it, so now that we're starting to get them all back. But it's a lot of the main people that's been here a long time that were really the ones that kept us going during that time. And the delivery services, they would call in and get it because they wanted that home-cooked meal, basically. But we were talking about that. And the people that come in and would come through the line, they would just tip. And there were days that we got a little emotional over it, because we just loved the way that the people welcomed us, because a lot of times you don't get that. And so we kind of come to the conclusion that I think they want us here. So, and that's kind of the way we ran it. So we're always thinking of ways to try to give back, to help out. The best we can. We're not one of these 5-star companies. These big companies that's got a lot of money, but we try to give back what we can.
Well, it's very noticeable. We've, like I say, we see you at a lot of events. One event last year was the Allen USA celebration, which is a big celebration. It's the biggest party we throw here in Allen, and I saw that you were coming back this year. And people don't realize you go out there and donate all that food. And it's just amazing how you've just taken a step to say, Allen, this is my home. But then as you talk about those during COVID, Allen told you that we wanted you to stay home, stay right here. So it's really good to watch and see. Now, if you were to just kind of wrap up and just share your experiences that you highlight in being in Allen, give me 3.
Whoa. 3 experiences in Allen?
That are exciting, that motivate you, that gives you that warm feeling.
Well, it's the people, first of all. I can go back to when my children were in high school, how we got to be to where they were being welcome, because now they come into the restaurant and we got people that come in been on the movie sets, in Hollywood, and they come in and remember going to school with my kids and stuff like that. So I tell my children, although they're all grown, I tell them that that's a good testament to what you were in the community as well. So that reflects back on Camilla and myself, which we don't always patting ourselves on the back, but we just thank God for giving us the direction that we had to do that. So that was one thing. And then when I first came here, being able to help with the youth and the youth sports and stuff. My youngest son was small, and so they welcomed us in the community. And even though I was an outsider, they welcomed me as a coach and in the coaching field and all of that. So that was one thing that when we first got here, because we were kind of apprehensive. We didn't even know where to live. We didn't know what. So we rented when we first come here so we can kind of fill out Allen. And we were actually thinking about coming and moving to Plano. And then when Allen was so welcoming, we went ahead and did that. And that was one of the best choices that we made, now looking back on it. And then to give you another one, this is where we met a lot of good people at the first church that we went to here. And so that was one thing. And we were in the historical section down there when we came here. And so it was pretty nostalgic for me because I'm a country boy. And then that was all country when I came here, down in that area, which is now a lot of the downtown Allen, Old Town.
Right.
So I got to meet a lot of people, and that's kind of what integrated us into the system. And then by working here, it kind of gave me a toehold in the community. So I know it's just been a good ride for us.
Ride. Well, what for the viewers that are looking, what's your address down there?
400 East Main Street.
400 East Main Street.
Yes.
Little old red building down
Little
there.
red building right downtown in the Triangle.
Yeah, in that little
and
triangle.
the Old Town Allen, and we love it. It's a lot of fun.
My favorite items when I come over there, I love the ribs. Okay, because you do spare ribs. It is hard to find spare ribs around town. Mm-hmm. I mean, good old spare ribs, because a lot of folks do they do baby backs and then they do the St. Louis. But to get a good old spare, so that's one of my favorites because it's nice and moist. And then the other day I came down, I didn't know you had this, but I had some turkey legs. Oh, yeah. I had a turkey leg, and it was nicely smoked, and I gnawed on that for a good hour. I went back to the restaurant, and my wife goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I found a turkey leg." So the food's good.
Well, that can be 2 meals if you really want to stretch that one out, because those are big legs.
Yeah, well, my staff.
But we've had them for quite a while.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we didn't just push them, but we have them, and the people that do, we've had them come in and get 8 and 10 at a time. So
that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, listen, I want to thank you for coming out today and to share a little bit about your story. Love your restaurant.
Thank you.
Love the way you're a part of the community. Allen people take care of Allen people, and you're one prime example of taking care of Allen people.
Yes, sir.
So thank you for being here.
And I appreciate you for allowing us to be who we are in the community, and for you to help us out, because there's a couple occasions that there was some good information came through your office that really helped us during COVID, and I appreciate that.
Thank you very much.